what I pray happens is these guys hold their ground and they sit out until justice is served and those cops go to jail.
What's up, guys? My next guest is former NBA assistant coach Irv Roland. I'm so excited to have you here today. There's a lot of stuff that we need to touch base on, but first and foremost, how are you doing today?
I'm good. A little tired, a little jet lagged, but that's part of it. I'm good.
Of course. So I know that for people who don't know, you've been flying back and forth from California to Louisville to be with Breonna Taylor's family, to lead some peaceful protests. So talk to me a little bit about what you've been doing down there.
Yeah, so, I coached with the Houston Rockets from 2016 to 2019. And when the pandemic hit, I was in Houston, living at a hotel and training a bunch of guys from different teams that, lived in Houston until they went to Orlando to, be in the little bubble thing. And, George Floyd was killed. And obviously George Floyd was from Houston. And so Trey the Truth, the rapper, huge activist, huge philanthropist, he put together a big march. I think it ended up being about 70, 80,000 people in Houston. And so Kenny Stills, who is on my shirt right here, Kenny hit me up and was like, man, we gotta pull up, we gotta be there. So George Floyd's entire family was there. We had a small little group with us, and we went. And Tamika Mallory, who is one of the co-founders of Until Freedom, she spoke there. And Kenny and Tamika already had a relationship prior to George Floyd's death. But that's when, all the Breonna Taylor stuff happened.
Mm-hmm.
And, it was like, we can't just, be all gung-ho about our men. We got to protect our women as well. And Breonna Taylor's case has been something that really struck home with me because, my family, my friends and stuff, they worry about me going to protests and being out there on the front line.
Mm-hmm.
And my thing is with Breonna Taylor, it's like, she was safely at home until she wasn't, And so for me to sit here and be nervous or be scared or whatever at home, I'm not safe at home because the cops can clearly do whatever they want to do in this country. So for me, I grew up like every other kid. I wanted to be like Mike and all that stuff. Kobe, LeBron, I love all these guys. But I want to be like John Lewis more. And John Lewis, he meant a lot to me. He was somebody that I admired a lot. The Black Panthers were somebody, guys that I admired a lot. And, basketball is what I do. That's my career. Mm-hmm. But I feel like my calling is, being front and center. And, for guys, I think like it's not always about, being the most outspoken. You just figure out your platform and use it to the best of your ability.
I love what you've been doing. I think it's really important. And as me and you kind of talked about, as you've been going back and forth, you've been trying to get guys to come with you, guys that are in the NBA. And, obviously their platforms, their voices make a huge impact, as we just saw today. Mm-hmm. But, what have you been trying to get them to do? And like, why aren't they following suit?
Yeah, I think about this topic often. For anybody listening, I challenge you to read, if you're a reader, to read $40 Million Slave. It's an amazing book. But it talks about the disconnect with athletes once they become famous, once they become rich, and how they disconnect from the Black community. Obviously, a lot of their families still live there, but because they are treated so different in society, like you have the Kanye West, you have the O.J. Simpsons. These guys, it almost seems like they've gone out of their way to disconnect. Mm-hmm. But then for the average guy, it's such a natural progression because everybody in the world puts you on such a high pedestal that you feel like you're immune to, you know, what the average Black man, the average Black woman, brown or Black in our community, in our societies, they have to deal with. And it's sad, but I just got to keep fighting. One thing that I've been trying to do is, you know, I realized that being on the front line and protesting and stuff like that, in harm's way, getting arrested, going to jail, like, I'm cool with that. You know what I mean? I'm cool, whatever. Everybody's not cool with that. Mm-hmm. And I know, because I worked in the NBA so long, I know what guys do within the team structure as far as going out in the community. So I've simply invited guys to come do that. Last weekend in Louisville, we flew out and we fed 2,000 families. Breonna's mom came and pulled up her sister and her boyfriend, who was actually, you know, shot by the police. He shot first at the police when they broke into the home late night. And so I invited guys to come pull up and do that, put some smiles on the faces of people in the community. You know, whether, you know, I don't know what God's reasoning is behind not wanting to come. I have different theories. I feel like some guys, it's easy to just care on the computer. I can post a black square with a cool little hashtag. I could post a little fist. I can post arrest the killers of Breonna, you know, and then go back to my regular day. And, you know, I'm just in a position right now, man, if I offend anybody, it is what it is. But I just know if I would have invited guys to Scottsdale and told them we were going to have 50 strippers, you know, at the party, I know guys would have pulled up to Scottsdale in a second. But when I hit guys asking them to come to Louisville, Kentucky, guys' responses, man, I heard some crazy stuff. Guys were hitting me like, oh, man, I don't think I'm going to be in Kentucky that weekend. And I'm like, who's ever in Kentucky any weekend? You know what I'm saying? And it's like, I'm not making no money right now because I'm a basketball trainer. I live in LA. All the gyms are closed. So I'm not making no bread, but I got enough money. I could fly. I could be present. And I know guys got time to do that because we probably not going to play basketball till March. But whatever their reason is, if they want to do something else, that's cool. I can't put that blame and that label at whatever on everybody. Josh Okogie and Jared Vanderbilt, my two younger brothers, man, those are my guys. They pulled up, joined me. Breonna's mom, Tamika Palmer, she was more than excited, like, that they came and took time out of their schedules to be there. The kids were excited to see them. You know, these are guys that they get to see on TV. Jared obviously went to the University of Kentucky, so, you know, he has an attachment to that community as well. So, you know, I just got to be thankful for the guys that do want to pull up and then try to inspire more.
How is her family doing? You know, I think everyone, you know, we see everything happen in the moment. It goes on for a couple days and then suddenly we forget about all those people who are still grieving and still trying to process everything that happened. How are they doing? And has anything happened since then?
Yeah, so the first time we went, it was about 7-8 weeks ago. Kenny Stills and I went, and Breonna's mom spoke, and her spirit, her, then, you know, I think it's more God than anything speaking and shining through her. She's just amazing to be around. Her energy, cracking jokes with us, laughing with us. And here I am, I'm over here in tears, like I'm over here, you know, somber every day. And for her to have that type of strength every day, because, you know, usually when somebody passes away, you know, you've had to deal with death, I've had to deal with death, people close to us, we can start to, you know, hit the grieving process early and, you know, try to work and navigate our feelings and stuff like that. For her, this is something she has to think about and hear every single day. No justice being brought to the killers, on top of, you know, there's billboards everywhere, there's signs everywhere, there's murals everywhere. But her spirit, man, she's unbreakable. I love her to death, man. And we're going to keep showing up as much as we have to. Daniel Cameron, the Attorney General, he met with her and the family 2 weeks ago. And, you know, for me, I'm trying to be optimistic, have faith, and I'm praying that it wasn't a publicity stunt. But I know that a big portion of his contributions to his campaign come from the police union. And for him, I know he doesn't want to mess that money up. He's a big Trump guy. And this is something I want people to realize. This isn't about politics. This isn't a political thing. This isn't Democrat, Republican. Right is right and wrong is wrong. You can be a Republican and have a heart. You can be a Republican and understand that Black and brown people in this society in America aren't treated the same way. But for him, I know he's tap dancing for that check. And I just think he is too worried about that instead of doing the right thing.
And, you know, I think a lot of people have been saying to me, because I do have a lot of friends who are on both sides, who don't really understand, like, well, what does the NBA have to do with this? What does the NBA have to do with everything that's going on in the world? But as you mentioned, like, some of them, they might think that they're immune to the things that are going on in the community. But we have seen a lot of Black NBA players come out and say, well, I was a victim of police brutality. I was a victim of getting pulled over and racially profiled. I mean, this stuff goes on every day. So for those people, I mean, I understand the message. I know what's going on because I make sure to educate myself and be in constant communication with guys like you. I have a ton of friends throughout the league who are deeply saddened and hurt by everything that's going on. And I try to understand. I mean, I can't fully understand because I've never been in that situation before, but I'm trying to understand and I'm trying to use my platform to speak up. But for those people who seem to just don't understand, for you, what is the NBA boycotting? How does that make a difference in society today?
Ash, I want to make a point about something that you just said about trying to understand. So for me, I know you can't relate to what it's like to be a Black man in society, right? But on the flip, right, I don't understand what it's like to be a woman in this society, right? Correct. So if you come to me and you say, me and you, let's say we work together, we work in an office, and you come to me and say, Irv, I can't stand it here. The sexual harassment, the sexism period is too much to bear, whatever. I can't come to you and say, oh, Ashley, you're full of it. Everything's fine here. You know, Jacob down the hall is just joking with you. Like, I can't come at you. Like, that's completely disrespectful because I don't know what you feel. I don't know what it's like to walk in your shoes. So I can be empathetic. I can check my male counterparts when I hear them say something disrespectful or do something disrespectful. I can put them in line, even if you're not around. That's the biggest thing. What are the conversations we're having when you're not around? What are the conversations that white people are having when Black people aren't around? You know what I mean? We can't just be your entertainment. You know what I'm saying? Like, you guys gotta, or they have to keep this conversation going amongst themselves. That's one way they can contribute to this fight. But as far as NBA players, I remember growing up and Charles Barkley saying that he wasn't a role model and he shouldn't be responsible for having to raise other people's kids. And, you know, I used to think about that a lot. I was young when Charles was playing. I was in probably middle school and stuff when he was at his peak. But I used to think about that a lot because I'm like, yo, does he have a responsibility just because he can dribble and shoot a basketball? You know what I mean? Like, there's so many guys that aren't educated, can't speak in complete sentences, haven't taken the time to read a book once they got grown. You know what I mean? Like, do we want these guys leading our youth just because they can run fast? You know what I mean? But if you go to any elementary school, in the inner city in America, and you ask Black and brown kids what they want to do when they grow up, 9 out of 10 of them are going to tell you they want to rap or play ball of some sort, right? So are all these athletes and entertainers responsible? Probably not. But at the same time, you can't use your platform to help tear our neighborhoods apart. You can't use your platform to help spread ignorance. And I feel like a lot of these players, whatever you do in private, live your life, have fun. We all have fun, whatever. But we have to do more to help build, educate, and uplift our communities. These guys, because they're, the top 1% in our country,
Mm-hmm.
Do they owe everybody something? Maybe not monetarily, but there's people that fought before you, ancestors that fought for you to be in this position. Mm-hmm. And because of that, we have to keep the fight going. And that's why, personally, I do what I do, because it's simple to say, it's just like voting, right? People say, oh, well, my vote doesn't count. What's going to happen if I don't go to the booth and my one vote, big deal, whatever, right? But, that's one thing I've thought about with this Breonna Taylor thing, for instance. If I was to pass away, if my sibling was to pass away, I would pray that, my mom, my dad, it's just the 4 of us, my mom, dad, me, my sister. I would pray that there would be outside supporters that would look and be like, hey, what happened to Irv is messed up. I'm not going to just post a fist on Twitter and go to Cancun. You know what I mean? I'm going to go pull up and show support for the family. I would pray that would happen. And so because I have time, I have a little bit of means, I'm going to go be present, because my one body here, I can try to go encourage and motivate other men to join the fight as well. When we went the first time, we were outnumbered 3-1 with women when we got arrested and stuff the first time. And so for me, like I said, I need more people that look like me to join in the fight for my people. And no, this isn't a Black problem. This is an American problem. But it starts with us patrolling ourselves and, trying to educate ourselves. And, I hope that more NBA players take this serious, because we might be at war soon.
I agree. And I mean, that's why I wanted to talk with you about this, is like, that they're in the bubble. And I know a lot of people, I know Kyrie Irving was ahead of it saying, I'm not going to the bubble. Like, I want to take a stand. Yep. And like, everyone was hating on him, calling him crazy. And we look at it now. And, I was up for whatever anyone wanted to do, because your fight is my fight, because I support you and I support the NBA as a whole. And what anyone wants to do, I'm in support. Mm-hmm. So I understood Kyrie not wanting to go, but now the guys that did go and they decided to boycott, now it's basically leading every headline in the nation right now, if not the world. Mm-hmm. So what do you think they need to do moving forward now? What would you do? What are maybe some things, if someone called you up right now, hey, what should we do next? What would you say to them?
Yeah, so when I landed today, I got back from Louisville at 12 this afternoon. And as soon as I landed, I started to hear stories about Milwaukee was thinking about sitting out. Obviously, Milwaukee's in Wisconsin. That's where, one of the most recent incidents happened. So for these guys sitting out, that's a huge stand, because you're letting it be known, all right, we're not just putting our jerseys inside out and throwing them on the floor, or posting vote and equality on our jersey. Like, no, we're really trying to make something happen and seek justice right now. So then I get to my house and I'm hearing from, my guys from Until Freedom that the players are reaching out, trying to get in touch with the Attorney General themselves. They get in touch with the Attorney General. He can make the call on arresting those cops. And so what I pray happens is these guys hold their ground and they sit out until justice is served and those cops go to jail. There's no reason why not listening should end up in you being shot 7 times in the back in front of your kids. Especially, and I don't wish, harm on anyone, but especially when we've seen white men threatening officers, pointing guns at officers. I've seen multiple videos, of them chasing the police officers. Mm-hmm. And the police officers had their weapons drawn, but they still were able to show restraint to those white men and women. Mm-hmm. We don't get that same courtesy. We get shot on the back. We get our neck stepped on while we're, obviously non-threatening, laying on the ground in cuffs. They still find a way to take our lives. And so for these NBA players, I'm thankful that they're finally kind of waking up and seeing that they need to join the fight and how much power that they really have. When the Donald Sterling thing happened, man, I was praying to God that the Warriors and the Clippers got together and said, hey, we're not playing tonight. They don't play tonight. That money's lost for that night. Guess what happened? Donald Sterling would have been fired immediately. It wouldn't have taken that long, but it's got to be more serious to everybody.
I agree. And when people say, what does the NBA have to do with anything, which they have everything to do with it, because as you just mentioned, they have a lot of power. I mean, not just their platform of millions and millions of followers, but they have the money and the resources to be able to spark change, reach out to those people who are enforcing the laws. But as you mentioned, regardless, this is an American problem, right? This isn't a black problem, white problem. This is an American problem where we've seen cops for far too long abusing their power, killing innocent men every day. I mean, this is only what we're catching on tape. Imagine what we're not catching on tape.
Right.
And thankfully we are able to see this, because if not, we would just keep letting this go on and on. Go
ahead. So when George Floyd was killed, that's when a lot of people, different nationalities, started to get active on social media. People were joining protests nationwide, worldwide. I had my friends across the world, going to protests and stuff, Black Lives Matter, all that stuff. I put on Facebook a week after George Floyd passed, I said, look, because I grew up in Oklahoma. Oklahoma's, you can't get more red than Oklahoma. Oklahoma, I think, is one of 2 states, I think West Virginia is the other, where every county voted for Trump in the state. So I grew up with mostly white kids. And so I posted on social media, I said, look, it's been a week. I paid attention to a lot of y'all social media. If after a week you haven't posted something, reached out to me, because for a lot of my white friends, I'm their only black friend. So it's not like they had a laundry list of people to reach out to. Mm-hmm. I said, if I haven't seen or heard something from you in support of my people by now, let's just cut ties. I wish you the best, Godspeed, but I don't need you in my life, basically. So I had a dude reach out to me. We haven't talked since we graduated 1,000 years ago. And he said, send me this long message on Facebook. We don't have each other's numbers. I ain't talked since I didn't even have a cell phone. So he says, Irv, I realized there's been recent murders to black people, but I really want to understand, why is the black community so upset, right? So I see that, I flip out. So then he keeps going and he says, I hope this doesn't come off as insensitive. I'm truly just trying to be educated. So I took like a day, because I was hot. I took a day to like process it. And I was like, you know what? I think he's being sincere. So I reached out to him. We exchanged numbers. I sent him so much literature, videos, all kind of stuff to take in. He hit me back and he was like, yo, I had no clue. And the thing about that is, he has no black friends. He lives around no black people, works with no black people. And what I equate that to is like badminton, right? So you and I, we work in a basketball space. I love baseball, I love football, I pay attention to those. But if I asked you right now, Ashley, who's the best badminton player in the world? Exactly. If I ask you, how many badminton players are there on the field at one time? Right? I don't know. I have no clue. I don't know if it's a one-on-one sport. I have no clue. But there's,
but I don't know.
I don't know. But there's a whole world of people that are passionate about badminton, right? Mm-hmm. That's how some people treat Black and brown people. It's almost like we're not even human. It's like, oh, I see them, you know, but whatever. That I'm not worried about what's going on with them. It don't affect me as how they treat it. So I like, for him to say there's been recent murders, it's like, bro, this has been going on for 400 years. We just finally have camera phones. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? And so it's been kind of hurtful. But from the education process, Black history is only Blacks were slaves. Then Martin Luther King came. Then players started dunking and stuff. All right, then. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're not educated. I have people, I'm from Oklahoma. You know what I mean? People I know that had never heard of Black Wall Street, the Tulsa Massacre and all that stuff. And I'm from Oklahoma. But they don't teach that. So we don't really know ourselves. Mm-hmm. And so this has been a big blessing. Sorry to get off topic and long.
No, I love it.
But this is something that I'm far more passionate about than basketball. So it's like, we got to educate ourselves and we got to join the fight.
I agree. I grew up, I know I always say I'm from Chicago because no one's ever going to know where I'm from if I say like,
where you from?
Buffalo Grove, Illinois.
Okay.
So I went to like one of the top high schools in the country, predominantly white. Like, I think I maybe had like 5 Black people in my school, and I think there was a total of like 1,200 per class.
Okay.
So we had a big high school. So I wasn't aware of anything going on when I was growing up, and I was very sheltered. And, you know, I think, like you just mentioned, is that for a second you were like, how does he not know all this? How does he not know what's going on? But I was that person too. And, you know, I've gone through a lot where, you know, I've said horrible things, I've done horrible things, and I admit it. And I admit that I've done things, you know, in the past, not anything recent, but in the past I've made some ignorant comments that were just like, you know, how uninformed are you? Like, how like stupid can you be? And, you know, it took me a while to process, like, wow, I said some very harmful and hurtful things to people, but I took it upon myself, you know, to educate, apologize to those people I hurt. Obviously, anything that I've done in the past, not a reflection of who I am today as a person. And I'm happy that I've come a long way and taken the time to reach out and speak with people about this stuff. Because again, like, if I'm not taught any of this stuff, or I'm taught to hate or look at certain groups a particular way, that's all I know. So when we see people that are still racist or making horrible comments in 2020, we know that this is something that they were taught. And that's what we always try. We see those cute videos of, you know, the kids that are, you know, a white boy, a Black boy giving a hug and excited to see each other. And that just goes to show that racism is taught, because you're not just born a racist. You're not just born a hateful person. You learn this stuff along the way. And honestly, being involved in sports has taught me so many valuable life lessons that I don't know I could have learned anywhere else, honestly. Because now I'm able to see and understand, like, wow, this is what's happening to my best friend. This is what's happening to my favorite player. This is what's happening to all the people that I care about. So I think, like, it is important, as you said, like, yeah, it does have to start with Black people uplifting each other and being supportive. But I also think the conversation has to be with white people as well, because obviously there's not a message that's getting across. And obviously there are too many white people that are in positions of power and who have a lot of the money, who are not doing anything to stop this. So I do think it's important for Black people to keep educating, and for white people to be open to that, because we've seen so many people just write things off, or, you know, talking trash on Twitter and saying, oh, what does this have to, this is all politics, and why are we bringing politics into sports? And it's like, they do go hand in hand.
Yeah.
You know, and then you see someone, I don't even want to say her name, but, you know, she tells LeBron and KD to shut up and dribble, but then she's trying to back Drew Brees for what he said. And it's like, can you just not comprehend? It's like, how do you not comprehend that, you know, something is going on? But at this point, you know, when you're a grown adult, you got to take the time to educate. You got to take the time to understand that there's life and there's things that are going outside of your little bubble. Yeah. And I don't think a lot of people were aware of this before everything started happening. And although the pandemic has been horrible, you know, a lot of people's lives have been lost. A lot of people's businesses have been lost. And, you know, life as we know it is no longer here. Mm-hmm. I think it's given us time to reflect and to see what's really going on. And I think people need to realize, like, this is all, I don't think anything's a coincidence. Mm-hmm. I believe that there's answers for everything. I believe that everything happens for a reason. And I think now is a time where we're starting to see the world change. The world is changing, it's shifting. We're going into a different time now where people, I think, need to start understanding and being more empathetic. Yeah. Doing a little bit more self-help, self-care, because for so long it's like we're bottling up all this stuff. Like, I'm sure you've dealt with so much in your life that you have never been able to speak on to this day, until now you're able to have this platform to speak. So I know I'm kind of going on, but I know you also had mentioned that you grew up in a predominantly white neighborhood. Mm-hmm. So I'm assuming you probably encountered a lot of things growing up and having those tough conversations with your parents of how you have to carry yourself when you do get pulled over and whatnot. What was a moment that you realized that, wow, like, I don't have the same rights as my white friends?
Yeah, the first time, I mean, so when you grow up and you're a Black kid in an all-white class, and you're the only, you know, I probably graduated with maybe close to 300 kids, and I want to say maybe 40 were Black, maybe. But in elementary school, obviously that number was smaller, so there would be times where it was maybe only me and one other, you know, Black kid. And from an early age, you can feel the difference in how, you heard of the doll test?
I'm not sure. No.
Okay, so the doll test is a test they do with kids. It's like a psychological thing. So the doll test, they put a white doll, blonde hair and all this stuff, and a Black doll in front of a kid. And they ask the kid, which one is the pretty doll and which one is the ugly doll, right? 90% of the time, kids will pick the white doll, because psychologically, you're taught to equate white with clean, Black with ugly, or pretty and ugly, or whatever. So that's something that kids are taught early, whether it's by their parents, whether it's in school, whatever. That's what you learn. So I remember being in school, and we had a show choir, and I remember every year they would have these like performances and stuff like that. Every year they would pick a white girl to sing and be the lead vocalist of the show choir. And I'm telling you, I went to school with some Black girls that, you know, went to Black churches and grew up singing in the Black churches. There was no way the singing talent was anywhere near the same. But because they wanted that white face to be projected when we do this school play and assembly in front of predominantly white parents, that's what was always chosen. And so from an early age, I started to see like, yo, this ain't even. This isn't even. It's not about who's the most talented, who's the most gifted or whatever. Like, at early age, we have to be taught, or we're taught we have to be twice as good. I had a conversation with a guy yesterday, actually, one of my former teachers, her husband, and he told me that he probably only had a conversation about race with a black man one time in his life.
Wow.
And we were talking about the conversation of white privilege. And he was telling me how, going on and on about how his upbringing was tough. He had to grind for everything he got. You know, he had to really work hard to even get in college, put himself through college, to build his business and blah, blah, blah. And I told him, I said, having white privilege has nothing at all to do with how hard your life was. Everybody goes through obstacles, obviously, right?
Mm-hmm.
But your life was hard, but it wasn't hard because you were white. So that's the difference. You being white, me being black, obviously gives you an extra card in the deck, right? You could pull that card at any time. So like I said, it doesn't mean that your life wasn't hard. It just wasn't hard because of the color of your skin. I remember Chris, one thing when I'm having these conversations with white people, I tell about Chris Rock's joke. He talked about how his neighborhood, I think in the time he was living in Connecticut and New Jersey or something like that, but Jay-Z and Oprah lived in his neighborhood. And he's like, yeah, you know, here we are, Oprah, the best, you know, show host in the world. Jay-Z, the best rapper in the world. Me, I'm one of the best comedians or whatever in the world. He goes, you know who lives next door to me? A dentist. And I guarantee you, he's not the best dentist in the world. But for us just to be on the same level as them, this is how great we have to be. And I make the example of like Kylie Jenner. Kylie Jenner can't dance, she can't sing, she can't draw, she can't cook. She's a billionaire, right? Jay-Z is a billionaire, and he's been doing this for 30 years at this level, truly gifted. But that's how hard he had to work to be on the same level as a 22-year-old white girl. You know what I'm saying? And so the playing field is just, it's just not the same, and we have to be twice as good. We have to walk a certain line. That's why you have guys like Michael Jordan, who for years, he wanted to be race neutral. He didn't want to piss people off. What did he say? Republicans buy tennis shoes too. He didn't want to own his blackness because he wanted to seem non-threatening. And that's the line people feel like they have to play.
I guess just moving forward then, what do you hope to get from, so you want the police officers arrested and charged, and then how do we go about then from there, making sure that there is reform with the police? Because obviously this has been going on far too long, where we've seen these guys abusing their power. They don't even know the law at the end of the day. If you think about it, we've seen videos surface where there's lawyers being like, you can't do this to me. This is against the law. Like, I know my rights. And we see that these cops are literally able to enforce laws that they don't even know. And they're able to carry a gun. They barely have any training. I don't even think they have to have a year of training.
No.
How can we go about, you know, fixing that? Like, what do we need to do? Like, what can citizens do anything? Like, what can we do?
Ashley, you're making this real tough on me because you just hit me with like 8 things that
I'm sorry.
I'm just so passionate about this that
I want to know everything.
I just think about a million different things. So backing up real fast, and I'll try to remember everything. So backing up real fast, you talked about the cops being arrested. So again, I had somebody reach out to me and they said, and I try to be careful. I reach out to other people that are smarter than me, that are older than me, when I'm trying to articulate my points, because I don't ever want to seem like I'm disrespectful or making somebody seem, feel ignorant.
Yeah.
Because I feel like there are people in my circle that want to be educated. So I try to watch out. But I had someone reach out to me. They asked me, why doesn't my group, the people that I'm involved with, why aren't we, there was a white kid, a 5-year-old white kid, I believe, a couple weeks ago that was shot on his bike and killed by black men. So they asked me, why aren't we as passionate about that issue per se as we are about a Breonna Taylor type situation? It took every muscle in my body to sit there and try to figure out, like, how do you not get it? The man who shot the boy on the bike, God bless his soul, I'm praying for his family. I hate that it happened. It should never happen that way. That man, though, is in jail for life. He's done, right? Breonna Taylor's killers are on vacation, paid leave. They're chilling right now. That is the difference. We just want things to be equal in this country, where people talk about black on black crime. There's no such thing. Black on black crime isn't a thing. It's just crime. It's just crime. Yeah. White people kill white people. You know what I mean? Maybe there's not as many white street gangs, but white people kill white people. Black people kill black people. It's just called crime. Those people go to jail, right? So with us, we want things to be equal, to where not too long ago, black people, women in this country weren't considered a whole man. We were considered 3/5 of a man, right? And so when you see George Floyd being killed and that cop's knee on his neck, he almost had a smirk on his face.
He did.
Because he was like, you know what, I'm good. You know what I mean? I own this man, and nothing's gonna happen to me. And he had that kind of confidence. I always say, if George Floyd was a dog, immediately that cop would have been in prison. If he would have killed a dog the same way he killed George Floyd, PETA would have been out there. The All Dogs Matter group would have been out there. He would have been dead that night if he was a dog. But because he was a black man, what happened? You had people like Candace Owens. If I was a female, I'd fight her. But that's beside the point. But you had people attacking George Floyd, talking about, oh, well, he wasn't that good of a citizen. So we're God now. We get to pick and choose who lives and who dies. Right?
Can I just interrupt you for 1 second? That's another thing that drives me crazy, and it's what happened the other day. Oh, well, he had a criminal past. I'm like, oh, so because you have a criminal past, I have a criminal past. I have a DUI.
Yeah.
Do I deserve to go get shot?
Right.
Because I could have put people in harm.
Yeah.
I could have killed people with my actions.
Yeah.
I mean, I've gotten a lot of trouble for it, and rightfully so. But does that make me deserve to die and get shot 7 times in front of my kids?
Only
No.
God makes that decision.
Correct.
God makes that decision.
I agree. So I wanted to just mention that, where people keep saying this stuff, and I'm just like, that doesn't mean you get shot 7 times and die. Yeah. That doesn't warrant that at all.
Yeah. No, it's really frustrating. People trying to rationalize why people got shot, why people got killed. Okay, well, it's one less bad guy on the street. Like, this stuff is insane. But also what you said about the police. I have a 3-year-old nephew, and what I always talk about is the guy who cuts my 3-year-old nephew's hair. Right? My nephew isn't on ESPN every day. He doesn't have to be made up and with a sharp line like Jalen Rose. He just playing in my mom's house every day, right?
Yeah.
The man who cuts his hair had to do more training than the police officers that are supposed to be serving and protecting. It takes longer to get your barber's license, to do nails, all this stuff, than it does to be a police officer. And like you said, a lot of these men and women don't know the law. They don't know how to de-escalate situations. I think in Oakland or San Francisco, what they're starting to do, instead of sending armed police officers, what they're doing is sending social workers to de-escalate issues. Because a lot of times, we don't need armed police officers coming, because what happens is they come, they're like, the average club security guard. They're just waiting for something to happen and something to jump off. They're antsy. They see a black man. He's bigger than them. He could probably, whoop them in a one-on-one fight anyway. So they're ready to do something anyway. We don't need them present. I was in a situation yesterday in Louisville where, we approached the cops. We were going to be arrested. But the cops came, they met us with force, they got their batons, rubber pellet guns, all this stuff, and they're just ready for something to jump off because they lifting weights, they doing this little boxing classes, they going to the gun range all day. Like, they want something to jump off. Mm-hmm. They should be spending more time learning how to de-escalate situations, apprehend people without force, like all of these things, than they are learning how to hit a target. How many times do you really need to shoot someone? As far as defunding the police, we have the deadliest police force in the world. And I think there's only been 12 days in the calendar year so far where someone hasn't been killed by the cops. I think 12 days in this present calendar year. I read a thing today. I wish I had it in front of me. It was talking about defunding the NYPD and what we could do with those funds if we took funds away from the NYPD. We could end homelessness in New York City. We could help. One of the things was we could help pay the rent of all the people who are in risk of evictions because of the pandemic. So many different things we could do for these funds. A lot of crime comes from poverty, right? So if we have people that aren't in poverty, they're not looking to steal and rob and kill and do all these different things. So I think the way we train our police officers is horrible. We just giving anybody a badge and a gun. That kid that didn't make varsity in high school and has no identity, and like, we got arrested 5 weeks ago. When we got arrested, it was 67 of us. They had us in a chain gang, right? So downstairs below the prison or below the jail, they had us chained up together for about 5 hours before they processed us and put us in the cell. So between that time of getting arrested and being processed, there was a shift change, right? So when the shift change came, there was this white kid, officer comes, and he's standing like maybe 50 yards away from us, but he has this shotgun, and he's holding it in his hand like it's just his prized possession. You have mainly women, 75% women, and men all chained together. We can't do anything. We're inside the jail. Why are you holding your shotgun like that's his prized possession? And he's almost like, you could see it, like he's daring somebody to triumph. You know what I mean? Because that's what he came there for. And so we talk about gangs and stuff like that. They're the biggest gang in the world.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think a lot of people don't realize this too, because even though I didn't grow up in the city of Chicago, there's a lot of crime that goes on there. There's a lot of killings each and every day. I think this is the worst summer that they've seen all time. But I think what people fail to understand is I think there's a link between the cops. I can't prove it, but this is what I've heard, is that you wonder, how do they get the guns, right? If you have to go through all those proper, protocol to get a gun. I mean, at least out here in Arizona, it's easy to get a gun. Yeah. Which I don't think it should be as easy, because we see people abuse that power and just want to fire it off whenever they want. But I think there's a lot of corruption that goes on within the police. And I do think that they are the cause of a lot of things that go on in those inner cities, by giving them the resources like guns and giving them the ammunition to be able, I mean, do you really, alcohol or drugs? I mean, do you really think about this? Do you really think some of these politicians that are in positions of power on both sides, Republican and Democrat, do you really think they want a civilized society? Do you really think they want people to be together?
So this is something we talk about often, reparations. So when Europeans came to this country, they brutalized, whatever we want to call it, brown people that were already here. We have a whole day for it. We call it Thanksgiving. They took this country over by force, and they plotted out their land. So now they're land owners, which is one of the most valuable things you can have in this country. So they're land owners. So Black people go through slavery, we become free. So now we're free. We own nothing, right? We're forced into inner cities and we own nothing. We have to figure it out, right? What I equate that to, I heard this from somebody else. Imagine the Arizona Cardinals playing a high school football team that had no equipment. They had 12 players, no coaches, and they were just out there playing as hard as they can. They're trying, they're winging it. They're playing their hearts out, but they're playing a team with the best athletes, best trained athletes, best coach athletes, the best equipment money can buy, the best sports medicine that money can buy. That score at halftime would be about 2,000-0. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? The other team wouldn't stand a chance, no matter how hard they played. But imagine if at halftime we said, "Hey, you know what? This is just unfair. You know what I mean? Let's level it off. Let's give the other team talented players, talented coaches, sports medicine so they can recover. Let's try to even it out a little bit." You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But the score is still 2,000-0, and you got to try to figure it out for the second half. That's kind of what we're almost trying to do now. But what if at halftime we said, you know what? We're going to make the other side equal, and we're going to make it 0-0. How many of like you said, those politicians, they wouldn't sign up for that. Like you think about, we always talk about the crab in a bucket mentality. Think about yourself as a female in sports. A lot of times as you move up the ladder, a lot of females start to become territorial of their spot because they know what? They're not going to let a lot of females at the top of the food chain. Minorities the same way. I'm not really trying to mentor that young Black dude that's the intern, because I know if he starts to grow too much, they're not going to let both of us up here on the coaching staff. You know what I'm saying? And so that's how we kind of look at each other, because this is the top of the food chain is mostly white men. Mm-hmm. And that's how they want to keep it. You talk about make America great again. That's what they want. They want all white men at the top. We are trying to fend for ourselves. We talk about equality. How many people that don't look like, whatever, how many people really want that?
I think a lot of people just talk. A lot of people just talk. And, Kyle Kuzma tweeted something interesting today where he was like, I hope that whoever gets voted in office keeps the same energy. He goes, it's not a Republican Democrat thing anymore, because it's to the point now where we've seen so many different people in office, and what really has changed? Anything?
Yeah.
Nothing. We have Democrats, we have Republicans, nothing changes. So now it's to a point where what are we even voting for anymore? Do people even know what they're voting for? And then what we get too is like we said, is talk is cheap. Anyone can go up there on the podium and say, we demand change, we demand justice, but what does that even do? What are we even doing here? So when people ask, well, what's boycotting going to do? I mean, they're not going to play basketball. And we know how valuable sports are in society across the board. I mean, without sports, honestly, I don't even know if the world would be able to go on if you think about it. if we cancel all sports.
Oh, and so
over.
you talk about COVID, but COVID on top of not having sports is a distraction. So Frederick Douglass, he hated sports, right? Because he said sport is just a distraction to make the slave think that everything is okay, right? If I'm in Scottsdale and I'm a slave owner here, then I call up my buddy who's a slave owner in Glendale, and we say, hey, we're going to get our 2 fastest slaves to race. We're going to let the other slaves watch and cheer them on. For that brief little moment in time, all the slaves think everything's okay. No, you still in bondage. You know what I'm saying? And so we were in COVID, or still in COVID, and we had no distractions with sports. Now you saw all these players on the front line. And people can say what they want about protesting. There's been so much change, so many laws changed from George Floyd's death to today. I wish I had them in front of me, but there's.
Yeah, I want to know.
And I'll send them to you. I have them in my phone. I keep all of this stuff. This is all I do all day, but I keep.
See, I don't know any of this stuff. Like, I wish people would tweet it. Like, I wish that this would be, because it's like, you notice how it's like we never know like what anything's going. Like, we don't know anything that's going on. Like it's like I never know. Like, okay, when Obama was in office, I don't even know anything he did. Like, because they didn't report it. I don't know anything that Trump did. Like, I don't know. And like, they had to have done something, you know, like you're in office for 4 years, 8 years, like we don't know anything. So I want to know, like, with all these, I want to know the laws that are changed. It's like, it's like, we're only talking about the issue. We're not talking about the solution. Like, what's going on?
One of the things that has been changed, which is huge, but not big enough, because it still bothers me that it even existed in the first place, Breonna Taylor law. There's now no more no-knock warrants in Louisville. So when I left last week to come back home, they were having a press conference. They were trying to issue a bill where there's no more no-knock warrants in the state of Kentucky. The fact that that was even in place in the first place is insane to me, that you can walk into someone's house unannounced, plain clothes, kicking the door. If I'm armed, if anybody's armed, I'm shooting. I'm not gonna wake up out of my sleep disoriented and say, oh, who is it? I'm shooting. You know what I mean? That's just what it is.
Didn't they know she lived there?
They knew she lived there. They were trying to say that they were looking for her ex-boyfriend, who was an alleged drug dealer. She hadn't been with him for forever. But mind you, those same officers, I could send you all this stuff if you want to see it, but those same officers, 5 officers, were involved in a botched raid in 2018. And I got the video and everything, but they were involved in a botched raid in 2018. So, you know, the fact, like I said, that even existed is insane, but they have changed the law, so that's progress to a small degree. They're trying to get it changed around across the state of Kentucky. I think the state of New York, they changed the law. You can't use the move of putting your knee on someone's neck anymore to apprehend them. That law is now changed, but there's a laundry list of them that the laws have changed because of protests. Ahmaud Arbery, who was killed while jogging in his neighborhood, those guys were only brought to justice because of the outcry on social media. So, you know, obviously we saw it on tape, we saw it on camera, but we had social media, everybody making their voices be heard. And one thing I also get bothered by is people blaming the protesters and stuff like that, and downing them because of 1 or 2 bad apples that cause some destruction and whatever, destroy some property. Why don't we hold cops accountable? You always hear, oh, all cops aren't bad, right? When one cop kills one guy, like, all cops aren't bad. well, why don't we have that same standard for protesters that are out there trying to create change? Like, anybody that comes to me with a sentence of, I mean, it sucks George Floyd died, but you lost me. We can't talk anymore. Like, I don't want to be your friend. Anybody that could say someone died, but that's letting me know that you feel like it was like, this is greater than that. The destruction of Target is greater than his life. Target is going to be rebuilt. Target is going to be bigger and better. Mm-hmm. His life is gone. His daughter will never see him again. So to compare the two is insane.
Well, I agree. And I think what's also an interesting point is, you know, everyone wants to say like, oh, you can't clump all the officers in one group. But then it's like, okay, well, cops want to say, oh, you fit a description because you're black, you're bigger. Oh, we're afraid. We need you to step out of the car, sir. Right. Oh, you fit the description. And it's like, okay, well, now you guys all fit the description then. Since they're bad cops, I don't care if you're good, you're a bad cop now too. So if that's how they want to play these games. But then another thing to the point is a lot of these destructive protests like we've seen in Portland, and I know there was a guy who got beat up and pulled out of his car, and that wasn't even from a black person. And so I think people are not understanding that some of the destruction, I mean, we saw, who was Logan Paul? Yeah. He was going around out here, the big YouTuber. He was going, to Fashion Square, destroying the place. And it's like, he's not even black. Yeah. So everyone wants to say, oh, these Black Lives Matter, like, oh, these black people are destructive. Like, no, like, they're not even the people doing it. Like,
I had videos of white guys breaking into surf shops, stealing surfboards just to take advantage of the opportunity. Yep. I have videos of a white kid breaking windows and a group of 5 black kids going and throwing him on the ground because they like, yo, they gonna blame that on us. Mm-hmm. I've seen videos of cops going and breaking stuff just so they could go and say, hey, look at what them N-words did again. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And another big issue for me is people that confuse the Black Lives Matter organization with the Black Lives Matter movement, right? We're simply just trying to matter, and people that get offended by that and say, oh, all lives matter. All right, well, duh, you just proved my point. You know what I mean? Black lives are included in that, but we haven't been till this point in our country's history. We're trying to be on that list of all as well. And for you to get offended by that lets me know where you really stand. But people, man, I've had people, oh, well, did you read the Black Lives Matter website? They say this, like, look, man, that ain't got nothing to do with nothing. That ain't what we fighting for right now. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's so many issues involved with just the movement itself. How do we create change? I want more men with influence to use their voices more than just on social media. I get it. A lot of guys are uncomfortable in that space because they don't want to turn people off. But if you have, like, I tweeted this and I had somebody reach out to me. They were troubled by my statement, but a friend of mine tweeted something, I retweeted. They said, look, if I do business with you currently, or we were potentially going to do business, and you have an issue with Black Lives Matter or anything that I've said about equality, that just lets me know that we shouldn't be in business together. Because for myself, I'd rather sleep in my parents' guest bedroom for the rest of my life and be broke than sell out and tap dance for money. To me, Floyd Mayweather is the greatest boxer ever, right? Muhammad Ali was a really good boxer, but he used to take a beating in the ring. He took a handful of losses as well. But we hold Muhammad Ali to such high regard because of what he stood for out of the ring. Mm-hmm. How many men of his caliber, one of the greatest athletes to ever walk this planet, would put themselves and sacrifice at the peak of their career. He wasn't about to retire and almost done. At the peak of their career, say, you know what? I'm not going to Vietnam to fight them men when I'm getting treated like this in my country. Take me to prison. How many men are willing to make that sacrifice? And so I sit here, like I talked about John Lewis, if these are the men we admire, then why don't we all try to look like, or try to act like them and be like them, you know, try to emulate them. You see all of these players, now everybody wants to kneel, which I hated. I hated that they did it, because true courage would have been to join Colin Kaepernick, Eric Reed, Kenny Stills, when these guys were some of the only guys kneeling.
They lost their jobs.
And really, you know, those guys weren't, I mean, Colin was making good money, but Eric Reed and Kenny Stills, they weren't making NBA, like big NBA contract money. So for these guys in the NBA, where they have more of a voice because the NBA is more player driven than the NFL, why don't y'all collectively say, hey, we're going to take a stand. We're not playing. You know what I mean? We're not going to do this, or we're going to do that. And we're going to really flex our muscle, because in the NBA, they need the players. In the NFL, you can go get some replacement players. You can go find future Hall of Famers at D2 schools. The NBA is so top heavy, and these guys' voices are so strong that they shut that thing down, it's over with.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree. I mean, you touched on so many different things there, but I know we've been on this call for like over an hour, because I could talk about it forever. Yeah. So I do have one question for you, just because I do want to know. So in Chicago, I know they have something called like zoning, which I'm sure you're familiar with. It might be called redlining, or it might be called something different. But you know, and this happens anywhere. But I remember specifically, there's different territories, and they're all marked basically. Where, you know, you go from my area, and then you start going more south and more south and more south and more south. And then you start noticing, like, okay, it's not as nice.
Buildings look a little different, couple more gun stores and liquor stores.
Yeah, just a little different. So I just wonder, so where I lived, obviously property taxes were through the roof. That's what was going towards the schools, towards the police officers, towards the resources that we had in our communities. So for the people who are in the South Side, who don't necessarily have high property taxes. So of course they don't have that much money to be funding the schools. They don't have that much money to be funding the police even. And they don't have enough money to basically have a life that, you know, kids deserve to have. You know, I wish that kids could have had, that all kids had the opportunity to have what I had growing up, which was a good school, you know, resources, and you know, I wish every kid could have that. So for you, like, what do we need to do for those communities that don't have access or the funding that they need to have schools, to have, you know, after school programs when their parents are working, or they don't have, you know, just, you know, places to go? Like, what do you suggest that we do for that?
So one thing I think is big is obviously donations, but donations of time as well. There's so many people that have the means, the income to help support. If I live near the South Side, pick a school, pick a community. You know what, we're gonna start a little after school, or not, it doesn't even have to be every day after school. Every Wednesday and Saturday, we're gonna take kids in this community, we're gonna feed them, because a lot of these kids are only being fed at school. That's why another reason the pandemic has been so hurtful, so harmful, because these kids are having an online school. They can't go to school where a lot of their meals come from. So if you can only afford so much, all right, you and a group of your friends, y'all get together. We're going to take some kids from Robertson High School and on the South Side, and we're going to feed the kids from the middle school and give them pizza every Wednesday and Saturday. Or whatever. If you got some more friends and we can do more days, cool. But I challenge people to do that. Find some kids and say, hey, we're gonna have a day in the park and we're going to do this, and give kids other opportunities other than, you know, just sports. Like, you know, why can't we do a cheap little, you know, I'm an artist or something like that. I'm going to do a painting class with some kids from this middle school over here, and volunteer my time so they're learning the arts, because a lot of these kids, those programs have been cut out of their school. So all they know is I need to learn how to rap or shoot a jump shot, or I can't make it out of my community. So if you have time, if you have means, there's ways you can donate and give back to the area. Pick one. Challenge your friends. Hey, look, this is what I'm doing. You pick a school. You know what I'm saying? For me, I don't like to post that I'm going to protest because I don't do it for show. But I want to challenge other men. So in that case that you're talking about, challenge other people to say, hey, this is what's going on up the street. We don't like it. We don't think it's fair, because I love kids. And I feel like all kids should be given equal opportunity, because kids are brilliant. Their minds can take on so much. And we don't know who the next Obama is. We don't know who, you know, the next Chris Paul or whatever is. And so giving these kids other outlets in any way that we possibly can. Another thing which you're talking about, police officers not being able to just fund the police in that community. A lot of these communities are policed by officers that don't live in that community. And so they're not familiar. They're scared when they get over there. There's a show called Crime and Punishment, and it's on Hulu. It's a documentary. But one of the cops on the documentary, he's policing in an area that he grew up in. So he goes to the liquor store, there's an altercation. He knows the guy's fighting. And there was a white cop that beat him there. He's about ready to draw his gun and, you know, put people in cuffs. The guy just went over and talked to him. Hey, man, Carlos, what y'all doing, man? You know, chill out, man. Just go home, leave it alone. Like, it ain't that serious. He talked it out. Nobody needs to go to jail. Nobody needs to be put in cuffs or shot or worse or whatever. Y'all go home. It ain't that deep. But a lot of people, because they don't come from those worlds, they don't come from those communities, they don't know how to talk to them. My dad is a elementary school principal. He takes on, obviously, a lot of white teachers fresh out of college. All they know is what they learned in a textbook and not real world interaction with these young Black youth. They want to send every kid to the office. They want to suspend every kid. A lot of times, these situations aren't even that deep. If you just know how to interact, crack a joke or whatever, and just vibe with a kid, the situation's over in 2 seconds, and the kid's going back to being a kid, and he's good. But you don't know what kind of trauma that kid is dealing with at home. Mom works 3 jobs, didn't come home last night. They ain't ate in 36 hours. You know what I mean? You don't know what these children are dealing with. So I wish more people with means would just go spend more time in those communities and use their resources and their time and their means.
Well, it's interesting too, because, you know, in Chicago, the cops don't even sometimes come. You call them, they'll come 20 minutes to an hour later. And by then it's like, you know, you're better off just, if something happens, just going in a car and driving to wherever you need to go. Or like if someone gets shot, the cops don't come right away. And that's something that, like you just said, is that a lot of those cops are not from the community, so they don't care. Like, oh, well, whatever, we'll get you, like whatever. They don't really understand, or they're scared, and they're like, damn, I don't know.
I was in a situation last night where in Louisville, so a big group of my protesting family went to jail. So we were waiting outside of the jail for them to get out, because that's what we do when we go to jail. And there was another group of people there, you know, young people. They were being rowdy in the street. And so the cops came, boxed in all the perimeters of like a block radius, and charged the kids. They ran over a woman with their car, pepper sprayed and maced kids and stuff like that, because they wanted them out of the park because it's right next to the jail. So it was this big ordeal. Somebody got shot, all this stuff. Maybe 2 hours later, some of those kids got into an altercation themselves right outside the jail. Guess what didn't happen? The cops did not come because they don't care if we harm ourselves. You know what I mean? That's the difference. So that's why a lot of times, you know, Black people joke about, oh, we called 911. It took them a day to get here. They don't care if we die. They don't care if we kill ourselves. They want to catch us in a crime so they can process us. They get money for that. But that's a whole other story. But, you know, our whole system, people talk about our system being broken. It's not broken. It was never the way we wanted to be to begin with. To say it was broken to mean it was something else before. This is what it was meant to be, to hold Black and brown people at a disadvantage. And so we talk about systemic. This is what the system is. It's always meant to, you know, hold us down. So we got to figure out how we can restructure things so we have a level playing field, you know, for everyone.
Yeah, and it kills me to know that, you know, some of these kids, like you said, they don't get fed. And, you know, if you think about it, there's enough money and power in this world to where we can literally, like you said, end homelessness. And just imagine if every player in the NBA decided to feed even 100 kids twice a week, 3 times a week.
This is another issue. I think it was a hurricane right before the season started, I believe. And I think it was, you know, guys like Zion, for instance, number one pick money, Jordan money. He has, you know, some endorsements, but he's still on a rookie deal. He hasn't made money yet. Zion gave $1 million out of his pocket to help support these families. And I know some other players did as well. But I use Zion as an example because he was one of the younger players that did. And that bothered me because it's like, here we are, Zion, fresh out of school, just getting a check. He's jumping to give $1 million. Where is Tom Benson, who's the owner of the Saints, the owner of the Pelicans, who's a billionaire? His wife, where is she to give 10 times that? You know what I mean? And so everybody is so quick to jump the gun and Black Lives Matter and this and that. Don't make this a trend. Don't make this something that's just a wave, like, oh man, let me post something real fast so they don't think I'm racist. Like, use your resources. Jeff Bezos himself, off the money he's made this week, could end homelessness.
But it just goes to show where their morals are at.
It shows where your morals are at. I mean, there's not too many good billionaires out there.
No, they just want to make more money.
They just want to make more money, and you're making money that you can never spend in your life. You're hoarding resources, and there's nothing wrong with being successful. I'm on that mission myself. But if God has blessed you with this, you've worked for this, but God has put you in a situation to succeed, why wouldn't you want to see other people just living normal? You know, like kids having a good Christmas, a birthday, or, you know, whatever. Being able to have a tablet to study and do online classes or whatever the case may be. But, you know, too many people just want to be up at the top and looking down at everybody.
Well, another thing you just said too, that was a great point, is it's like, why is NBA players, why do they have to lead the way? Why do they have to boycott for these owners to open their eyes and say, okay, we need to get involved too?
And so that's one of the things that I want to see them flex their muscle on. And I don't know Zion, but for instance, these kids, whatever, they come out and say, you know what, until our owner steps up and starts to help these communities out, we not playing. You know what I mean? Use that muscle. There's a hurricane. I pray to God it blows over Houston and New Orleans, and those people are safe. 2 communities I lived in as well. But I pray all those people are safe. But God forbid something happens. those players need to say, because there's a lot of players in Houston and New Orleans with a lot of voices and muscle. They come out and say, you know what, y'all owners, y'all got so much money to donate to Trump's campaign, help our communities. You know what I'm saying? The Houston Rockets, their owner is one of the biggest Trump supporters in his campaign in the NBA. You feel that strongly about it, help our communities. You know what I'm saying? If you really care about Black lives and Black players.
I could not agree more, because that's just something that, to me, I'm not understanding. It's gone this far to the point where, like, you know, I saw an interesting post again where someone was like, okay, so the NBA slapped Black Lives Matter on the floor, and then they had, you know, players get to choose what they wanted on the back of their uniforms, but that's it.
Well, they gave them a list of things they could choose from. There were things they wanted to do that they X'd out. So again, like they still, you know, weren't all the way free. But yeah, no, but
so what's that doing? You know, okay, Black Lives Matter on the floor. What does that do? The jerseys, what does that do?
Nothing.
It's not, I mean, I understand, I mean, that they wanted, I mean, I think that going to the bubble was a good thing in terms of right now, like the season came back and then they decided to boycott the game. I think that holds a lot more power than just like not having the season come back and then things kind of die off and maybe people aren't on social media as much anymore because they're like, oh, there's no sports, I don't care to be on social media. So yeah, I think it was important to go to the bubble, and then now that the boycott happened, there's more attention to it now, because now it's flooded across everywhere where it's like, wow, we've never seen this before.
Yeah.
I think the last time we saw it was with Bill Russell back in like 1960 something, I believe. That was the last time that we saw anything like this happen. So this is history. And now it's, you know, up to these owners who I think now are finally like, okay, we're going to have a meeting. We're going to try to figure some things out. But no one should be hoarding billions and billions of dollars.
No, because you can't, unless you're trying to help other people, you can't spend all that money. Like, what can you possibly buy? You know what I mean? So why wouldn't you use that money to help other people in need? There's no way, I mean, I ain't never been a billionaire, but I wouldn't be able to drive by these communities that I've seen in Louisville. I mean, we were in the projects. New Orleans is a lot of people in need. Houston, a lot of people in need. I wouldn't be able to drive by that day in and day out and knowing that I'm hoarding this kind of money and still profiting off of Black players and not helping their communities.
And even for me, like, I don't have money to give right now because I don't have like a job and I'm not financially stable right now, right? Yeah. So for me, like, even when I drive past someone who's homeless and in 115-degree weather, it kills me that I can't do anything. And regardless of the situation of why he's there in the first place, doesn't matter. No human would have to stand on the corner, which is humiliating to begin with. Like, think about how humiliating that is, to stand on the corner, to hold a sign, say that I don't have money, anything helps, I'm homeless, and then to top that off with 115-degree weather. And then you don't know if he has a family at home. You don't know his situation. You know, everyone would say, oh, you can go get a job. Is it that easy to go get a job? Because right now I'm having a hard time. I mean, thankfully, I have a home and I have a house. I have a roof over my head. I have food. I have clean water. But it's not easy for people to just go and get a job. I mean, I know so many people who've lost jobs. I know people who've been trying to get jobs for years that still can't get a job. So
with degrees.
What?
People with degrees that can't get jobs.
I have a degree. I have multiple degrees. And it's like, you know, we're in a time right now where it's like, you know, things aren't so easy. And I think we need to be a little bit more understanding. And I keep going back to just being empathetic, be understanding, and just try to just love your neighbor. You know, that's the thing, is like, for me, like, it doesn't matter what I've been through. It doesn't matter anything like that. I care about the next person, and I care about what you've been through. Right. You know, like, it's like we've all been through things, and I think we need to be standing together more. And I wish if I had all that money, Oh my God. I mean, I love kids too. I already know that'd be the first thing that I would do. Honestly, I would probably want to work with girls, young girls, young ladies, because I do think that we need a little bit more support in that area. Because so many women that I talk to today, even though they had all the resources and stuff growing up, you hear a lot of their traumas and a lot of things that they had to deal with growing up. And I think I'd be at a point now where it's like I'd want to lead the way and be like, you could do anything you want and you could be whoever you want. And I don't think that there's enough of that. But yeah, I don't know if there was anything else that you wanted to add. I know we've been literally almost 2 hours because I know we could talk about this all day. But is there anything you wanted to add that I may have missed about everything that you're doing, about what you want to see be done?
No, I mean, I think, we can chop it up more as things progress, whether guys decide to go back to playing and finishing out the playoffs, whether they don't. I'm really anxious to see the response of the players because I know some players do want to play and finish it out for selfish reasons. Not calling them bad people, I'm just saying for their own personal agendas, they want to play. So I'm anxious to see the response of different athletes during this time. So we'll play it by ear. And then
what do you think they're going to do?
I hope they don't play. I hope they don't play. Like all y'all come back, come get on the street with us. And, Milwaukee Bucks players, y'all pull up in Milwaukee and y'all start protesting out there, then guess what? I'll be right out there with them. But, I just don't see what playing basketball with some equality and some other quotes on my jersey is going to do. Like, use y'all's voices and go be present.
I want to thank you for taking the time to talk with me. And most importantly, thank you for everything that you're doing to educate, to bring awareness to this, to protest, and to just be an overall great human being. And I really do appreciate you.
No, I appreciate it. All we can do is try to inspire and motivate other people. So I appreciate you having me on.